Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. Today, all the way from Essex, we have Paul Moughton from TP Decorating. Right, Paul, let's talk.
How you doing? You all right?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How's things down in Essex?
Yeah, it's been a nice day today. A bit cold, but it's been okay. Yeah, it was lovely.
Well,
When was it? Yesterday. Lovely.
yeah, well, we're recording date-wise for anyone that's listening in years to come. What are we now? Towards the end of Feb, aren't we?
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
uh, well, we'll jump straight into it, Paul. So you have obviously you saw the podcast. You reached out to me over social media and said that you've got a story to tell. As with any stories, mate, they have a beginning. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of your story. So how was life for you in the early days?
I would say that. Um, yeah, I was a fearful child. I was
Mm.
full of
How,
anxiety
how young are we talking, mate?
as far back as I can remember.
Really?
Yeah, I was petrified of everything. I was scared that the trees were going to blow down, kill my family. I was just scared of everything, riddled with anxiety from as early back as I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did out of interest, mate, did anything happen to trigger that? Because normally that like anxiety, that fear response, there's something.
yeah. No, nothing happened. No, nothing happened in the early years. Probably around about at the age of 9 or 10, I was touched by a bloke, and that sort of done my head in adolescence, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
bet,
but
mate. I
the
mean, yeah. What
but the
actually
earlier
what
stuff,
what happened there, Paul? If you don't mind me asking, mate.
it just he sort of like what's the word? He played about with me. Nothing, well, nothing like seriously bad, but
Yeah, yeah.
It happened twice, and I thought I can't tell no one this. I can't tell no
Wa-
one this.
I mean, you say that, mate. I mean, that's a pretty big thing. Like, was that somebody that was it somebody you
Nah,
knew or just a complete
didn't know.
stranger?
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
it was at a sports centre, and I
Ah,
used to play. He was like the caretaker of the sports centre, but it happened twice, and I was petrified to say anything. So it was just
Christ,
I sort of departmentalised it in my mind and pushed it to the back of my head. I never told a soul.
you you never told anybody at all.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I
all
never
right.
told a soul then.
Christ, mate.
I
Christ.
never told a soul from there. And but up until that, I was always still anxious and full of fear and everything.
So the
Um,
anxiety and the fear was there like before that incident anyway.
yeah, all the time.
I
And
mean
I
that
thought,
that
do you know
can't have
what?
helped.
Yeah, no, of course it didn't help. But what happened from there, then that sort of mucked me up a little bit from the ages of 12 onwards because I'd had this
Mm,
secret, and I thought when you start going into puberty
yeah.
and you start growing up a little bit, that's when I start getting like twitchy and nervous tics. And do you know what I mean? That's when, like, I don't know, I suppose biologically things wasn't
Mm.
really wired up right in me, you know?
And how were things for you at that point at school? Like, did the school pick up on anything, or did your parents pick up on anything? Because
Nothing
I'm
at
guessing,
all.
mate, forgive the judgment, but you're from a generation much like me, like well before. Because nowadays, like the kids seem to be getting labelled with everything. So it's
Yeah.
either ADHD or autism and all these sort of conditions. But back in your day, back in my day, there was none of that. There was no diagnosis. It was just the naughty kid or the quiet kid or the awkward
Yeah.
kid. How were things for how were
It
things for you at
was,
school?
junior school was brilliant. Junior school was fantastic. And then we moved from Stanford to where we are now in Hornchurch. We moved there to when I was about 11. And this is when it sort of changed for me because I didn't really know no one here, and then I've got to go to a new school and form new friends. And I found that quite difficult, first of all. And that's sort of because I felt a bit nervous. Obviously, if stuff had gone on, um, I then felt extrovert, and I've got to say this, I've got to do this to try to be the loud one or whatever. Do you know
Okay,
what
so
I mean?
you like act. Yeah, so you became like extrovert as a defense.
Yeah, yeah, as a defence to cope with that anxiety and all that in my mind, you know.
Yeah,
But as I said, like from the ages of, obviously when I got here, I formed a group of mates and we're still friends today. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
So, but that sort of moulded me into this anxious, nervous, lying person trying to cover up sort of insecurities and fears that I had, you know.
Yeah.
And I would say from the ages of 13, probably 14 in school, that's when sort of, I don't know, I used to start sniffing Tipex thinner on my blazer. So you'd put a load of Tipex thinner on the blazer and then put it to your mouth and breathe it in. And then
So,
it
so just
was,
to clarify, like a little bit of background information, because when you reached
yeah,
out to me, you said that you'd struggled with addictions throughout your life and mental
mm,
health. So I
yeah,
guess this is the story of how that very first began.
yeah. From that, it started really from then,
So at
you know.
13, the first sort of like substance misuse that you can recollect is like sniffing Tipex and was it
Tipex
glue
thinner,
sniffing, wasn't it? Glue sniffing used to be a thing and
yeah.
aerosols. I
You used
don't
to
think I
see him
never
with
did
the
it myself.
nah, you used to see him with the big brown bag when we was like about 11. It'd be
That
over
was
here with the
it.
Evo shit, yeah. But no, it was
Yeah,
Tipex
I,
thinner.
I never did it. I
No,
could never understand. I
no.
could never understand how it worked either. So
I think it's just the fumes. I think they just put the Evo stick in a bag and then breathed it in a bag.
really,
Think it's pretty much similar as opposed to what the young kids when you see these silver canisters.
yeah, the laughing
You know,
gas.
yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing as that. But
Wow.
yeah, that was it was Tipex thinner, smoking weed,
Mm.
uh,
And
sniffing
what age were
petrol.
you, what age were you when you first smoked weed?
Probably at a puff, probably about 14, and it didn't agree with me.
Okay. Yeah.
14 and I did not. That's the only drug that didn't agree with me. Mind you, at the end they didn't all agree with me, but that one there didn't agree with me. Made me paranoid as anything,
Mm.
and I
I
could
guess
never
if
smoke
you were
it.
anxious, yeah, if you were anxious anyway, that would like magnify that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was bad, and you'd be sitting there, and everyone would be laughing, and I'd be thinking, "What are they laughing at? What are they laughing at me? They're laughing." It was
Yeah.
just that. It's funny because at the age of 50 now, 51 in a couple of weeks, so I can see I'm a bit more aware about all this stuff now. Do you know what I mean? Back when I was a child, I wasn't. I was thinking, why am I feeling like this? Why am I? But now I've got a bit more understanding about it. I've had a few years of acceptance around it. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? But I can actually see for what it is, and I can see that why I've done it because I wasn't happy. You know, I was
Yeah.
fighting this. Was not fighting, but I had this. I was riddled with anxiety. I just wasn't happy at all. I hated school.
And
Hated it.
nobody picked up on that at all.
No.
But I guess the problem is when you're that young, you don't know how to put that into words, do you? You don't know
No.
how to tell your parents that you've got anxiety. It's just a feeling at that point. Um, and you can only see one of the things that I've looked back on myself, my own life, and like a mindset adjustment that's really helped me
Yeah.
because I used to feel guilty about some of the stuff, some of the way that I behaved. I guess I just wasn't proud of. But looking back, I kind of think, well,
Yeah.
actually, what I did at that point was I coped with that situation with the tools that I had at the time, which weren't a lot, you
Yeah.
know if the person I am now were put in the similar situation, I would react very differently. But I didn't have this knowledge, I didn't have the experience, and I didn't have the tools. So I kind of think it was just survival. And by the sounds of it, it's
Yeah.
the same for you. You were young, you were struggling with the anxiety, and your substances were there to mask that for you.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they was. But at the end of the day, it's really weird. Like you do it, and even though I knew it was wrong, but I don't know
Mm,
back then. Maybe it was an attention thing, you know, because we
yeah.
used to play with colour gas. We used to play with gas cans, um, excuse me, like aerosol cans, and put them really on the skin to make the skin freeze.
I remember something like that. Yeah, yeah. I can't remember exactly where that meant. That's just triggered something in my memory. That, yeah,
It's crazy, and we'd walk about with these burn marks on our arm, like. And thinking about now, it's a real like a form of self harming.
yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
a form of self harming. Obviously, not cutting yourself, but it's the same thing. You know,
yeah.
my mum was traumatized with it by it. I
Mm.
didn't dare tell her. Well, it was through aerosol cans, mum. She said, "What's that on your arm?" I said, "I've got no idea. I woke up this morning over there." She must look at me and thought, "No, come on, I'm not that stupid."
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know
I
what I
remember
mean? But
this. Yeah, I remember that. It's a weird thing. I don't know. Like at school, there's those weird things. I remember when I was at school, lads went through a phase of like, the little compasses that you used to have to take to school with a tiny little needle point.
yeah, yeah,
And it would be like who could. It sounds horrendous now when I say it, but it was like who could cut themselves the deepest with it. But it wasn't. It wasn't from a self harm perspective. It was like a macho, like,
yeah.
I can draw more blood, which is ridiculous now looking back. But
Insanity, isn't it?
yeah, 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 yeah. I imagine if I'd have walked in the house with all these cuts on my arm, your parents they'd flip out, wouldn't they? But that was what we were doing. It was like, oh, I'm harder than you because I can cut myself more.
It's
Mental,
crazy.
some of the stuff you do as a kid. But so how did school end up for you then, Paul? Like, how did you do when it came to exams and that?
I didn't do none. I got kicked out.
Okay.
What happened was I just tested it and I'd mucked about so much. I went for my mock exams and it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. And I just thought, I went into the fifth year and a week into the fifth year, I said, I want to leave. And they said, you can only leave if you get a job. So my mum said to her brother, who worked on a market stall, will you take him? He begrudgingly said, yeah, yeah, I'll take him. And that was it. I left school and I went and
And you went
worked
to
on the
work on the
market
markets.
stalls.
Do
I
you know
went and
what,
worked
mate?
on the
That's
markets.
there's a weird, like, I don't know if it's just me, but I've got like a romantic image of the markets, like particularly in London. Maybe it's because I'm a Midlands lad, but that whole like the banter. How long did you work on the markets?
He couldn't go out and get rid of me after about 2 or 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? It was a
Longer.
nightmare. No, no, no. I worked there probably for, I reckon, probably for the remainder of the year. 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. But
Mm,
yeah, he'd had enough of me. My uncle had had enough of me by then because I was just a nightmare. I found everything funny. I found out I thought things were amusing, you know what I mean? And
mm.
in the end, he'd say to me, "Why did you do that?" And I'd go, "I don't know. Just thought it was a laugh." You know, a woman's walking towards me, soaking wet, and the rain's all on the top of the tarpaulin sheet. And as she gets close, I've just knocked it over. She's soaking wet. She went, "Why'd you do that?" I went, "Don't know. Me head told me to do it."
Yeah. And
Do you know
were
what I
you
mean?
still
So,
at that stage? Were you still? Because by the sounds of it, with the whole of it, like substance abuse, was this consistent, or did you have times where you were off and on, or?
no, I had times when it was off and on. It wasn't like solely. It was like a little bit of dabble, have a bit of weed, whatever. It wasn't like you was bang on it. When I left school, then I can't. I think I left school in 1988. So it would have been 1988, 1989
Mhm.
was like for me when the house music thing. I'd left school and this house music rave scene just started coming out, and
Okay.
that was for me brilliant. That was the escape. That was
Yeah.
the escape I needed. It was fantastic.
And I'm going to speculate here, mate, but was that when the substances spiraled?
Yeah, they was like that's when well, it started. We would um, it would be we'd take speed, um, then we'd take as time went on, we'd be doing ease, and we was
Mm,
going out. And listen, I can't sit here and condone it and say it was all bad. You know, I had a great time. We had a proper
mm,
laugh, me and my mates. You know what I mean? And it was brilliant. And it sort of but it became like every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday would be off of work because you'd be on
mm,
a come down or whatever. And if you did have to go into work, you did, but you wasn't in. But all it was living. to go to work, to go out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know?
Yeah, it was a different culture back then, though, Paul, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That seemed to. I remember when I was younger, going out and night clubbing and stuff, and the youth of today just won't understand it because they don't do it, do they? Or they
no,
do it very differently to what we did. But it was a different culture and that like rave scene. Although, admittedly, I was never really part of it myself, but I
right,
was
okay,
around people. I was around people that were.
yeah,
And like you said, that they seem to have a great time. If I'm honest.
because they was all out there. No, that's what it was.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
you know what I mean? It was good. And if you think about it, I know this might sound a bit uh, back then when we was growing up. So whether you was going clubbing 89, 90, 91, that era of them few years when it was just house music clubbing, all different clubs popping up, drugs, everything, it was brilliant. Yeah,
Mm,
but there seemed to be no violence. You
mm,
go to these clubs, there was no violence. There was no stabbings and all this went on, but I never see any violence in all that time going to clubs because everyone just wanted to go. There was no mobile phones that people be viewing everything. You know, you
yeah,
was in the moment. You was in the moment with the music, dancing, surrounded by people you wanted to be with, just having fun. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? And there's a lot different as opposed to the kids today. You know,
Yeah, it is, mate. It's frightening. I had this conversation actually with one of the previous guests that was on, Joe Baker from Second City Screed, and I said to him, like, because we've both got, like, so my son is 16, turning 17 soon, and he's
yeah,
got a son the same sort of age, and I said, like, one of my speculations on that is that these lads now, when it comes to the stabbings and that, because they don't seem to really have fights anymore.
no,
And when I talked to my son about it, and I said the same, I was like, your generation don't seem to fight anymore. They just stab each other. And he went, well, the thing is, Dad, if you get into a fight, there's always somebody recording. He said, the
yeah,
last thing you want is to get knocked out on camera and then forever be like a meme. Do you know what I mean? You're on the internet,
mm,
then you're going around everyone's social circle. It's sent round town. There's a video of you getting knocked out. So the kids are fearful from fighting, which you could argue is a good thing, but it seems to be instead they're stabbing each other.
yeah. But the thing is, if you think about what you're saying there, though, like when you see these young kids and they're in there, I'm not stereotyping anyone here, right? But you see them with uh, they're all in black with their black hoodies on, this and that. From a young age, they all think that
Mm.
they're a gangster, right? That's whatever the stereotypical thing of a gangster is, right? They all think they're a big tough man because of what you just said. They don't fight no more. But I'm pretty sure if they did get in a fight and someone cracked them right on the chin and knocked them out, they wouldn't be thinking they're this big tough man anymore.
No, you're right, mate. I think it's mad. I do like this whole trend. I mean, we're going a bit off subject here, but the
Yeah,
whole trend of like these youngsters that walk around in balaclavas when the whole fact,
what's that
so they've
about?
got hood up to there and a belly
Yeah,
onto there, and
yeah,
that's like when I was growing up. If you walked around with a balaclava on, you'd be nicked, like because the only people, like, it's so, mate, innit? The only people that wore a balaclava were bank robbers. That was
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
you were robbing
yeah,
somebody or something. Whereas now
yeah.
it's like a fashion statement. The kids are walking around with a balaclava on all the time, and
It's crazy.
it can only end badly, can't it?
Of course it can, and it's sad. I mean, I'm lucky, not lucky, but I've got no kids. I've got a stepson.
Mm.
He's 30 now, but I've got no kids, and I'd be worried if I had kids who were 14, 15 going out. You know,
It's frightening, mate. I'm not going to lie. I am in that
yeah,
position, and it is frightening. Luckily for me, again, the whole thing seems to have changed. Like my son, he's not interested in going to the pub. When I was 15, 14 even, in fact, what was I? My 15th birthday, I went clubbing in Birmingham. Got a fake ID out the back of a magazine and went to this mad club
had
called
a beard on
DNA.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mate, I went to this club called DNA, and I was like you said, it was all like house music, lasers, and all that. And I was like, wow, like I have made it here. Um, but my lad, not interested in that kind of thing. I mean, him and his mates, they get together and they go to the gym at midnight. It's mental, like totally different. He's not interested in going to a pub at all.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, different generations, mate. Different
Yeah,
generations.
totally,
But listen, we'll
totally.
pull it back to you and your story. So we've sort of got to the point where you were struggling with your anxiety, and you touched on substances. You've gone and done that bit of work with your uncle on the markets. What came after that, then, Paul?
What came after that was I had real no vision or no drive or anything. I didn't really. It was like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Didn't really know what I was going to do. And then my mum said to me, "Well, you've got to do something." So I went and done a YTS in panel beating and like spraying cars. That's what it was. I got to sit in guilds in spraying cars.
Okay,
Um,
there's your first little venture with paint.
that was my first venture with paint, yeah. And I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. But I just thinking about it now, I wasn't earning enough money,
Mm.
and I was more concerned about going out. If I'm truth, I was more concerned about going out. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be this, and all my mates was earning X amount of pounds, working in a bank or whatever, and I was only on this YTS 50 quid a week. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't enough. So I left there, and then I've done so many jobs. I got a job working for British Rail, and I was a guard on the train. I was a guard on the train at British Rail, and that was ridiculous. That was because I didn't mind the job. The job was okay, but I was going out all the time then. So I would turn up to work out me nut
Mm.
some days, coming
What
out of
did
the
you have to
coming out
do
of
in
the
that job? Out of interest, what were you due? When you say you were a guard, what did that entail?
I was at the back of the train. I had to make sure all the doors, had to open all the doors properly, check on the station to see if people were coming in or out, give it a couple of seconds, wait for everyone on the platform to see it if there's no one there.
Mm.
Close the doors, be able to voice over them. You had to go through the train, do tickets, and that was one thing I hated.
And you were doing that
Especially
while you were off your head.
well, not off my head. Sometimes I'd go in on a Sunday and I was thinking, I was on a come down or whatever, and I would
Mm.
go and do it. You know what I mean? But the job was okay. But then they started doing random drug tests, um, and then I got a bit panicky, and then they offered me redundancy. So I thought I've got to take it. Do you know what I mean? I've got to
Through
take
the
it.
fear of
Otherwise,
getting popped.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Through the fear in case they'd done a drugs test and he was, I don't know, they'd come up ecstasy in your blood or whatever like that. Do you know what I mean? So I thought I've got to go.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then from there, I can't remember. It was really just sort of not bumming around, but I had to get a job, and then I done window cleaning, uh, and I was all right with that. I didn't mind the window cleaning. Um, and then it got to a point. I met a girl, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I need to better myself for in the future because I can't be a window cleaner. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that because it's not. But I
Mm.
thought, you know what? I've got to better myself here, so I decided to do the knowledge to be a black cab driver. And
See, mate, again, like that job. I mean, you can answer a few questions for me now, mate. To be fair, is
yeah,
it right
got
that
it.
you? So with the black cab drivers, you have
Yeah,
to know all the knowledge off the top of your head. So you have to you're like an encyclopedia of maps.
yeah.
Because there's no sat nav, was there back then?
No, no, there was no sat nav. No, I was 25 when I 25 when I started, so that would have been 73,
What size of
93.
area did you have to memorize?
6 mile radius of Charing Cross.
Fucking hell.
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
it
So
was.
what did the test consist of then? Would they sit there and go, right, take me to, or how do I get to here? How did that work?
Yeah. So basically, what you do, you was given it's called the big book. So you would
Mm.
have like 400 runs in there, and then runs would have a quarter of a mile. Say it said from where you live to where I live. Yeah. And then where you live, it would have 6 points of interest. Where I live, it would have 6 points of interest. So when you go up there, you've got to learn them 12 points, and then you've got to know the shortest route on the line to get there. So you go
Okay.
and I was doing 4 runs probably every other day or every day. But then what you would do then, you'd have to go home and then call it over. And by calling it over is just basically repetitive homework, You'd find a group of people like I'm talking to you now. You'd all sit around someone's house, have a cup of coffee, get the A to Z of London out, the big map of London. Someone would get a bit of 2 bits of blue tack with a bit of string, put it on the line, and you would go, right, I'll leave it on the left there, I'll go forward into there, go right into there, left into there, left, and apply the roundabout, and you'd be following it round, yep, yep, yep. So what would happen is you're given 2 years to do that book, right?
Yeah.
Once you've given them 2 years to do that book, you then say, oh, you go to the carriage office that was run by the police then and say, I've done the knowledge, I want to put in for my tests. And that's when it starts. So on your first test, you'll get given, when I done it, it was got 56 days. So you come back in 56 days.
Mm.
But you didn't know how you was doing. So I had 656s. So that's like nearly a year. Yeah, on my first stage. And then from there, I was still going out on the bike, still finding more points, still calling over probably every night of the week. It's religiously doing this. You don't get paid for it, and you're just doing this solely every day. My life
It's
was
no
on hold.
joke, is it? It's no joke.
No, 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 no. And by the time I'll put my hand out, I'll put my hand up and say, by the time you're ready to pass it out, your brain is quicker than putting it in Google Maps. How that comes up that quick, you can get it.
So it's a question for you now. What's your opinion then on modern taxi driving, where you can just whack it in a sat nav or a Google map or an Uber? It all comes up for them.
My I think it's got its purposes. Yeah, I think it's got its purposes, and it does help it out. Where I disagree with Uber,
Mm.
but this is a whole another thing. I disagree with Uber, and this was it towards the last part of me being in the cab. Was I was so stressed out with Uber
Oh, really? So how
because
long? How long were you a cabbie for then, mate?
21 years.
Oh, fuck me. So you did a shift.
Yeah, yeah. It's like all I can describe it as is solitary confinement. I'll probably put it up there with being like locked in Rampton or Broadmoor for 21 years.
Mate, you've got to have some stories, 21 years as a cabbie.
That's some crackers, some absolute crackers.
Go on then,
But
mate. Let's have one now. What was the funniest? I don't mean to put you on the spot. What was the funniest? One of the funny moments you had as a black cabbie?
I picked a woman up one night. She was an old girl. She must have been 80,
Mm.
85, and then she was absolutely mangled. Right. So when I picked her up, she was with somebody. By the time that person then got out of Little Venice, he made a vow. I've took her to her house. I've tried to she can't get out. So I've opened the door, right, and I thought, right, let's get her out. I've opened the door, gone round there, got her out the door, lifted her up. By the time I walked round the cab, she's fallen on the floor. I've walked round again, I've picked her up. In the end, I've picked her up. Now she's all over me. She's got her arms around me. A woman's walking to walk down the road. I'm now in her bag, this whole girl's bag. Right, this person now thinks I'm mugging her. All right, and I'm not. Then I've shouted out, "This ain't what you think. This is not what you think." She said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm the cab driver." I said, She's mangled." She said, "What are you doing on the bag?" I said, "I'm looking for a key." So I managed to get in her thing, get her key. She only had a back door key, so I had to jump over the gate, open the back door, and then I had to give her a fireman's carry in the house. I put her in her bed like that, and as I put her on the bed, this is what I put her on the bed, and as she was lying on the bed, she was like mangled. And I remember her full face. She looked at me and went, "You're a lovely man." She didn't even pay me. She didn't even pay me. And I thought to myself, do you know what? This was the stress of it. It's all right, like when you're doing these knowledge things, and they're saying, "Oh, you can go the quickest route, left to right, left to right." But what they do up there is they test your temperament.
Do you
They
know
want to
what, though,
know.
mate? I mean, in that circumstance, though, thank God that she had you, because you imagine the amount of people that are out there, and it's no like slight on cabbies, not saying that they're untrustworthy, but there'd be a lot of people there that, yeah, like, anything could have happened to her in that state, couldn't it? Like,
Yeah,
completely vulnerable. You're in the house. You could have walked out with anything. So, you were like the angel on her shoulder on that night, the fact that she got into your cab.
Well, I might have been the angel on her shoulder, but when I drove away, I'd called her a few words when I drove away because I thought I've done all that, tucked her to bed, and still ain't been paid. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But this is the whole thing where I started getting stressed out with the whole Uber thing because when you're a black cab driver, when I've done it, it was run by the police, and you have these tests, and they test your temperament and how you're going to be. You know,
Mm,
they try to wind you up while you're in there. They just all they're looking for you is to say, "What are you saying all that for?" Because then they know that you're going to buy it. And once they do that, they think, well, he's going to be that sort of cab driver we don't want him on the road, or we're laying it out till we, that's how it was for me. I mean,
mm,
there was loads of times where I knew that I was right, and I had the opportunity. I could have gone, "What are you talking about?" You know what I mean? But I didn't. I
yeah.
thought, no, don't. But then when I got my badge, it was, yeah, it was amazing. And I would like anything. I was naive. I thought I'm going to earn X amount of pounds a day. I'm going to have a place in Spain. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And little did I know I was going to end up clinically insane.
Was there good money in that at one stage, Paul? Before
Yeah.
Uber and all that?
Oh, it was a license to print money.
Oh, really?
It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant because there was no limit on how many hours you worked.
Mm,
It was all cash. Right. Well before the credit card thing came, it was all cash.
yeah, yeah.
You could do what you wanted to do. The
So there
cab
were good
drivers of the
times then.
70s, yeah, brilliant. The cab drivers of the 70s and the 80s smashed it without fail.
Mm.
That's why probably they're all retired, living out in Marbella or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Living the dream, living the
Living
dream.
the dream. Yeah, yeah. But the whole thing of being a black cab driver as opposed to Uber, because the black cab driver had to do all these tests, had to do this and get all these police checks and criminally checked. Uber was a bit more lenient than that. And then when you look into the whole Uber thing, the amount of backhanders that went on with TFL, and it's
Mm,
just such a corrupt. It's so corrupt, And at the end of the day, I know we're going off track, but the big powers that are in TFL and whoever run this government, Sadiq Khan with being a mayor or whatever, I think at the time it was, I can't remember his bloody name. No, I can't remember his name. His name's gone. But
mm.
it was, yeah, it became political,
Mate,
But
it's so political. Yeah.
at the moment now, it's so many roadworks up there, one ways, the, what do you call it, the congestion charge. You've got the
Yeah.
emissions thing, which is, let's have it right. I mean, I even had the other day, what's his name? The Conservative MP for Romford knocked on the door and they were doing door to door thing. And I even said to him, he says, "Is there anything you're not happy with?" I said, "This emissions thing, it's ridiculous. It's putting people like me, like you, if you're in London, you've got to buy an emissions free car." I said, "It's nothing to do with the planet." And his actual words was, "No, it's just a tax." And this is
Yeah.
someone in government. And you think it's just annoying.
So are you in that zone, are you then, Paul? Do you have to regularly?
Yeah,
So what have
yeah.
you done then?
But
Have you got a van or a car that's like whatever
I've
it
got
is? Emissions?
emissions. Yeah, I've got a ULEZ van.
Fucking
Yeah, I've got a
nightmare, mate.
ULEZ van.
I
It's a
think when they
joke because
brought it
we're.
all in,
Go on.
yeah, when they brought it all in, there was just an influx of people either wanting a ULEZ van or selling one that wasn't there?
Mm,
But
yeah,
it's
it's a
going to be
joke.
everywhere, mate. I mean, luckily where I am, there is no emissions thing, but it is in Birmingham, which I'm not far from, and I believe they've just extended that. So that was just city centre, and now they've pushed it even further out. And I've been caught on that a few times, mate. I've gone into Birmingham for a meal or whatever, and just completely forgotten about it. One of them, like, oh, I must do that when I get home, and then you go out, whatever, you come home, and however long later, a week later, I've got a 60 quid fine or 120 quid fine. But yeah,
That's what
I've,
I
I've been
mean.
stung.
It's a joke. And do you know what? I don't have a car, right? So I've been looking at getting a car, and I can go and buy a V8 petrol,
Mm,
18-year-old Merc, right, for a couple of grand. That's ULEZ free. How
really?
does that work? How does that
Work.
work? Don't know. Not the diesel, because that would be you'd have to pay for that. But I can
Yeah,
go and buy a free. I can go and buy a 5 litre BM, right, for 3 or 4 grand,
yeah.
and it's ULEZ.
Listen,
free.
mate, it's bollocks, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, so I've got
Totally.
two. There's two cars in my household. My missus has got a 4 Series 3 litre diesel BMW, and
Yeah.
I have got a Jag XF. There's 1 year difference between them. Mine's a 2.2 diesel. Hers is a 3 litre diesel. But because of that 1 year's difference, mine isn't compliant and hers is. And I'm telling you, mate, there's no difference on the emissions.
Of
In
course it's
fact, if
not.
anything, hers is worse. Yeah, it's just based on the age of the car. So
Yeah.
it's a load of crap, mate. But for businesses like cabbies or even you guys like small businesses trading in and around London, it's just murder,
Mm.
isn't it? It's one more thing
Yeah.
that, adds to the pressures of running a business.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, I've got a job coming up in a couple of weeks' time, but it's over in Sutton in Colshilton, like South London way.
Mm,
So I'll be all right on the emissions, but if I want to go through London, I've got to pay the congestion. So either
yeah.
way, do you know what I mean? You're going to get you.
What do you do then, mate? Do you just factor it into a quote? You know that you got to go through it, so you book it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's what you
Yeah.
got to do, isn't it? It's just one of them
Yeah.
things. Like, there's no getting around it.
Alternatively, drive your van up there the first day, unload all the stuff over there, drive your van back the first night, then get a train up there.
Yeah, yeah. Mind you, mate, I try and be organised, but you could guarantee if I did that, the minute I did that, I'd be looking and going, oh, where's that? Oh, fucking hell, it's in my van. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I need my
Yeah.
van with me at all times because as much
Yeah.
as I try, I would never remember to unload everything. Plus,
I'm
it's one of
exactly
them,
the
isn't it?
same as
Like,
that.
if you run out of something and you think, oh, I need to pop to the trade centre, but you've caught the train in,
Yeah.
it's just an
Uh,
extra stress, isn't it? You shouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. No, that's what it was on the last job that I done. It was up in London. It was a nightmare, to be honest. I run out a couple of things, and then I had to jump in a black cab, which I begrudged paying the black cab because I thought
Yeah,
myself, you was like
yeah.
charging an arm and a leg, but I was all right when I was on the other side of it. Do you know what I mean?
Was that just sheer stubbornness that you wouldn't order an Uber?
I would not. I will not order. I will never order an Uber. I've
No,
never been in an Uber.
really. What
Yeah, I've
about
never been
if
in a.
out? Is that like just a London thing though, Paul? Would you use Uber if you were outside of London?
No.
No.
See how it was years ago. It would be if it was in the suburbs, it would be a minicab. If you was up London, it was a black cab. So if there
Mm,
was a minicab firm, I would use it. But after minicab firms are Uber, and I will not do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
My
I know.
missus has got Uber Eats. My stepson's got Uber Eats, and
Yeah.
I've got Just Eat. I won't have Uber, even though it's the same thing.
No- Nothing with Uber written on it.
No, can't have it.
That's all, mate. I like that though. You're a man of your principles. I like that. I can respect that. But I know how political the transport thing is. I mean, in my local area, because I'm in quite a small town next to a slightly bigger small town, you can't get a taxi, mate. It's a nightmare. But I've heard local rumours that it's because there's one big taxi company and they're giving backhanders to certain people in the council, and place Uber can't get. So I live very close to Worcester city centre,
Right.
and you can't get Uber. Like Worcester's quite a big city. Uber are not allowed in Worcester. They can't get licensed in Worcester. So there are certain cities that are holding out against Uber, but it
Yeah,
is just
brilliant.
political, mate. It's just backhanders. So like if they're not
Yeah.
getting it, somebody else is.
And the thing is, if it was an Uber, it'd be another company.
Yeah, well,
Do
it
you know what
is.
I mean?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what happened was Uber was originally the one that came in, and like I'll tell you what happened. Right, I was everything was going all right, and me and my missus we went to India. Right, we had 3 weeks out in India. When I came back, we went over Christmas and New Year. When I came back, I jumped in the cab, and all hell had broken loose because people were jumping in cabs, cars. It was Uber. They was going around roundabouts the wrong way. They did not know how to drive in this country, or they did not know where they were going. It was
Mhm.
crazy, and that's when the stress starts. Then
Yeah. So
you're
then you're
not earning the
competing
money.
against that, aren't you?
Yeah, you're sitting on a rank. You might be sitting on an hotel rank, and then you could be doing 3 hours on an hotel rank, thinking, "Oh, might get an airport," and all of a sudden, bloke pulls up in an Uber. They throw the case out there. They're going to the Uber for £29. You can't compete with that.
Yeah.
That's when the stress comes in because you still got to pay the bills. You still got to pay your £300 that week for the rent of your cab. And now you're starting to get anxious and agitated and thinking, do you know what, I can't do this job anymore. And that's really what happened with me. I couldn't do the job anymore. But obviously being isolated in the cab as well, with after losing my head a little bit, do you know what I mean? It wasn't a good place to be.
Let's, if you don't mind, mate, we'll pull back to that because you've touched on it a couple of times. So, like being in the cab on your own for a long time. I mean,
Yeah,
that's got certain similarities with the decorating trade. You know what I mean? Or one
yeah.
man bands, because again, you're working on your own a long time. And you said you lost your head a little bit. What was going on there? Because I know, like you said, you've had your mental health. So far, obviously you've mentioned the substance abuse, but if I'm honest with you, mate, it's all sounded like you were having a fucking great time.
It
So
was good. Yeah, no, it was good.
when did, but
Yeah. What
when did it start to become a problem?
what happened was I got my badge for the black cab on the 22nd of December 1998, and
Mm.
I've never had. And that night, 22nd, no, Christmas Eve 98, I had a panic attack. Never had one before. I thought this is really weird. Christmas Day 98, I couldn't breathe properly. I went to hospital. They put me on the ECG, checked me out, and just said it's anxiety. And I thought, anxiety?
Okay.
I don't suffer with anxiety. But running alongside that, while I was doing the knowledge towards the end, I was really having weird, intrusive thoughts. Really
Mm.
weird. Thinking like I would be talking to someone and they'd say, "Give me a kiss," and I'd be thinking, why am I thinking that? You know,
Okay.
why am I thinking that? And it kept on giving me a kiss, and I'd be thinking, fucking hell. And another one was if I was talking to someone, why don't you just nut them, or why don't you punch me in the head? And I'd be thinking, what's going on here? Anyway, fast forward 3 months, it got to, it was 2 months, February 99, and I was sitting in a cab with someone. I was empty. I was in Hatton Garden. A woman put her hand up. I pulled over, and she said, "I want to go to wherever she wanted to go." And what happened was, I went to say something. Nothing come out. I felt like that in an instant, as if blood was coming out of my ears, my nose, everything. It wasn't though. I just felt complete and utter panic just come over me. Um, yeah, and I heard it sort of. I could hear it. It was like boing, like a little funny noise, and
Yeah.
something just snapped in my head, and I
Okay.
was never the same. I was never the same from that day.
Really?
What happened was, yeah, I went home. I went home, and I couldn't work. I couldn't go to work. I stayed in bed and I was crying. I was anxious. I was riddled with fear. Um, bad, intrusive thoughts, and I didn't know what it was. And because mental health hadn't in '99, mental health wasn't really spoken about.
Yeah.
You know, um, depression. No, didn't really know what it was about.
Yeah.
So
To be
I
honest
think
with
it
you,
went
mate,
on
I mean,
for
yeah, back then, it was kind of like you were either sane or not. There was no in between, was there? Like when it came to mental
no,
health, it was either you're normal or you're nuts.
yeah, yeah. And that day that happened, it pushed me over the edge. Whatever happened pushed me over the edge, and I would consider myself mental from that day.
So, so in like modern terminology, you're talking, was that like a full psychotic break, as it were?
I would say it was a nervous breakdown, yeah,
Yeah.
because what happened from there, it went on for, I went 5 years until I got diagnosed. So in them 5 years, the the obsessions and the thoughts that entered my mind was ranged from killing someone to I'm gay to being a paedophile to being I don't like women to being I'm a serial killer to being I'm going to go to prison. It was absolute hell.
And this was just like an internal dialogue for you.
Yeah, internal dialogue, and it was like all day, every day. just that was it. It was. I'd say all I can explain it was, when you see a record player going round,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it sort of like got a groove in it, and it jumps and it goes back to that a broken record, and that's how it was.
Yeah.
That's how it was, and it was that constantly. So then I knew there's an issue here. I shouldn't be feeling this
Mm.
because obviously this was all new to me. I felt sorry for my mum and dad because they were trying to help me out and they wanted the best of me. They're worried, thinking I'm going to go and do this. They're worried that I'm going to go and kill someone
So
because
did
my
you
head's
tell
telling me.
did you tell your mum and dad at the time, like, I'm
Yeah,
thinking this?
yeah. What happened was I was living in South London. I came home. I phoned my mum up and I said, "Mum, I need to come home." I said, "Something's not right. Can you come pick me up?" I said, "I'm really not well." And when, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm mentally not well." So I come home here and I was sort of gone. I was crying. I felt really agitated and anxious. I couldn't eat because I convinced myself that if I eat, it's going to create energy, and the energy is going to be in my brain, and then I'm going to start being overthinking. I'm just mental. And then I was having these obsessions, thoughts: "You're gay, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay." That's what it was like. And then I
Mm.
thought, I'm not gay. And me would say, "Yes, you are." "I'm not." "You are." I knew from the rational side, the rational part of me, I wasn't. But this irrational, whatever this was telling me you are. So then I thought, I need to phone the Samaritans. So I phoned the
Okay.
Samaritans.
Yeah.
And I was, meds on the phone to them. And she said to me, "What's the problem?" And I said, "You had said me I'm gay." She went, "Well, you might be." So I said, "But I'm not." She said, "Well, what are you giving it thought for?" I said, "Because I can't stop thinking about it." She went, "But you might be." I said, "But I'm not." She said, "Well, why don't you ring up the gay and lesbian hotline or whatever it was?" And I said, "Because," I said, "they'll convince me that I'm gay." I said, "Even though that I'm not gay." That's,
Yeah.
I know listen, talking the times now is different to how it was then,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you how it was then. Then I went to a doctor, and the doctor are so easy to give medication. Said, "There you go, take them," and put me on a tablet called um, Seroxat. That was double strong. That was really strong. And within 2 days, it sort of got me from here, down here, to up here,
Mm.
and I was off my head in another way now.
So like,
You know,
yeah. I mean, just to sort of like pause it there, because I'm like putting the
yeah,
pieces together as you're talking, and I'm no psychologist, but what my head goes straight to is these thoughts of, I'm gay, that kind of thing. Do you think that that might have been in relation to the what had happened to you as a child at the leisure centre that you hadn't told anybody about?
100%.
That's just like stuck and manifested in your head somewhere, hasn't
Yeah,
it? That
yeah,
it's almost trying to get out, and you're not letting
yeah,
it out.
yeah.
It's amazing,
What?
isn't it, what the mind does?
Yeah, it's 100%. But then from then, I see I could rationalise it when I was in a sane sort of mood. I could rationalise it and think, well, that's because of that, right?
Mm,
But then other obsessions started coming. So this one would go. So I might have 4 months of this obsession. You'll go, and then wake up one day, that's gone. That's not, and I think, thank God for that, it's gone. And then I'll get another like that coming.
yeah,
You're a nonce. You're a paedophile.
and that would
And
just
I
then go
think
on repeat.
that was the worst one for me.
I
That
can
was the worst
imagine,
one
mate. Yeah, yeah,
because I knew that I wasn't. I knew that I wasn't, and to have this thought, it was just hell. It was just absolutely hell. Because
mm,
I know we say we talk about like when mental health is out there, and you say talk to somebody. You know, you can't say that. I didn't tell no one that. Do you know what I mean? I'm fighting this. Um, so this went on and on and on and on, and I was going to bury it away. Um, so me and my mate decided to go to Australia. No, no, tell a lie. So I went to the doctor. They put me on this Seroxat. Didn't do nothing for me. Just made me more. It made me manic, and yeah, he just didn't agree with me. But then the funny part was, by taking that, I was drinking. I started really drinking, yeah, and
Mm.
it would make me really extrovert. Like I didn't care, didn't care. Um, and then I decided to. I come into a bit of money, and I decided me and my mate was going to go to Australia. So we went out to Australia for about 6, 7 months, and we worked out there. And first of all, it was good because we was away. It was a new change. It was a break. I was with someone, you know. Um, I was taking a certain tablet then, and it sort of leveled me off a little bit.
So
Yeah,
in the timeline, Paul, just to keep things chronological for me,
yeah,
so I can understand where you're at, is this you're cabbying at this stage?
yeah,
Yeah. How old roughly
yeah.
were you at this point?
20, 26,
Okay.
20, 25, 26.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, this went on 25, 26, probably to about 27, 28, 29. And I've been to see a couple of counsellors, not counsellors, I've been to see a couple of, yeah, therapists. They didn't know what I was talking about. They have no idea.
Mm.
And they just said to me, everyone thinks like that. Um, and I thought, you know what, this ain't doing me no good. I kept on taking the tablet they was giving me. Then I went down the path and I thought to myself, well, maybe I need to go into therapy. Then I went to see this therapist and he started doing regression to try to take me back to like when I was younger and we
What like
spoke about things.
hypnotherapy was it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah.
Try to take me back to when we was younger and talk about certain things. And he said, there's no anxiety coming from that. He said, so I don't think it's that. So, okay. But I was like 2 days I'll be fine, a week really bad. Was struggling. I was tired all the time. I was still having to go work in the cab. I just, and then I started using the people in the cab as sort of a counselling thing, talking to them, finding out if they suffer from the same sort of stuff or everyone's got issues and problems. But I wasn't right. You know, I wasn't firing on all cylinders. I was in a dark depression, but trying to maintain this because I've always been this sort of person that is try to cover it up and laugh and yeah, I'm all right. But inside, I was in a
Yeah.
dark space.
So from
You
the
know,
outside, people that didn't obviously know what was going on behind the curtain, you would have still been the extrovert, the bubbly Paul. Would that be right?
yeah, to certain people, but obviously family and friends sort of knew. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
That I just wasn't right. I'll tell you how I can describe it as being in the sun on holiday and not feeling the sun.
Mm.
Does that make sense? The sun's out there, but you just don't feel it
Yeah.
because you're so consumed and so wrapped up in self with what's going on because you don't know what's going on. You know, you're riddled, you're
Mm.
panicky, you're fearful. And the only thing then that seemed to alleviate that was drinking,
Mm.
you know. But that became a double edged sword that in the morning you felt like shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the anxiety and the fear and the terror and the frustration and all that was on me in the morning. And I was back to
Yeah.
square one. You're gay, or you're going to kill someone, or you're going to do this, you know. And
So
this went on
when
for,
you with the drinking, were you drinking daily?
when we was in Australia, yeah, we was drinking daily, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we was drinking daily. And when we went over there, the pubs were open 24 hours.
Oh,
So
really?
me and my mate thought it was great.
Kids in a
Thought it was
candy shop.
absolutely great. Yeah, it was, you know what I mean? Days out on end, staying out there drinking. Um, then we went to New Zealand and we met up with these Maoris and one of them had a joint and said to me, I have a smoke with that. Now, I said at the beginning, joints was never my thing. I had a puff of a joint and I spent 2 days in bed for fear of getting out because I
Yeah.
knew that, yeah, if I get out, my head was telling me you're going to kill the family. And I
Fucking
thought,
hell.
yeah, I thought, I'm fucked here. I thought I'm really in a bad way here. Um, So I phoned my mum and I said, I need to come home. I said, something is seriously not right. I said, I'm having thoughts of killing someone now. I said, and it's really bad.
And that was triggered by the weed.
Yeah, the weed done me. I know I had about 3 puffs of it, and I was lying in bed like that. I
Yeah.
lay in bed like that for 2 days, thinking I'm going to do something. I'm going to kill someone. And my head was saying, "You're going to do it. You're going to do it. You're going to do it." And it
Do
was
you know
like,
what, mate? I
"Fucking hell."
mean, I'm no expert in drugs, Paul, to be fair, but I've listened to a lot of research on it, and I've done stuff like I've studied independently. I've looked into like psilocybin research and things like that. But the thing with weed, it does seem to have this really extreme effect on a very small percentage of the population. But you know, it has been linked, hasn't it, with like psychotic breaks,
Yeah.
psychosis, stuff like that. And some people just seem to have a real, almost like an allergic reaction, but mentally,
Mm.
to weed.
It, yeah.
And I don't say that from a point of, I'm not anti weed either, because I'm sort of in a position, me, I mean, I'm not going to go off into a conspiracy chat, but it's one of those things to me. It's like, well, alcohol is the drug that the government tell you is okay to take. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I personally believe that certain drugs, like weed, if you can do it in moderation, I'm not against it. I'm not a weed smoker myself, but I'm not
Mm.
anti-weed. Um, I feel a little bit differently about some of the like chemical ones out there, but it's only because you don't really know what's in it, and that
Yeah.
scares. I think so. I've never really been a drug taker, mate. It's never been my thing. I've always had a drink, but I've always been, because I'm an overthinker, a worrier. So I would be the one, like hand on heart, I've never touched coke. Um, through fear more than anything, because I've always thought if I did it, I would be the one that would get the bad batch. I'd do one line and I'd die. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I also worry that if I did it, I'd like it and then I'd get hooked. So I've always just,
Mm.
I'm turned 40 this year, but I've stayed away from all of it. Um, but yeah, the weed thing, it just interests me because I have heard, I've read research about some people that have just got this intolerance to it. And by the sounds of it, you could be in that percentage.
Well, it absolutely annihilated me. It
Mm,
really did. Um, yeah, it wasn't good because I thought to myself, what are they? What is in that? What I don't know what is in that, but it has absolutely annihilated me. So yeah, from there, I then well, yeah, I phoned my mum up and said I've got to come home. I said I'm not right, and I came home, and then I made an appointment to see a counsellor at the doctor's, and the counsellor said, "Tell us what you're thinking," and the doctor, that's why tell me what you're thinking. So I told the doctor and told the counsellor, and the counsellor said to me, "I'm not qualified for this. You're going to need to see somebody else special." So they got in touch with a mental institution called Worley Hospital. It's now a posh block of flats, posh house estate. They got in touch with them, and I had an appointment to see the psychiatrist. And when I went down there, I told the psychiatrist, and he said to me, "You've got OCD." He said, "That's what you suffer with."
okay.
And I thought, I'm not having it. I thought, I'm not having it because OCD, what I knew of OCD was cleanliness of the hands,
Yep. Yep. That's it.
stereotypical, turning the lights
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought, how can I have OCD? And he said, you have a form of it called puro. He said, and that results is segregated in different subtypes of OCD.
Mm.
And one of the ones that you suffer with at this present time is harm OCD. And I said to him, right, I felt better then because I was um, pigeonholed. There
Yeah.
was a label to something that I was diagnosed with. It made me feel better. It made my parents feel better that I'm not a raving fucking lunatic, which I thought I
Yeah.
was.
I was going to ask you that, Paul, to be fair. Like, how did that feel? Was it a relief, to
Massive.
finally think, do you know what? Actually, I'm not completely broken. I need a
Yeah,
bit of help with this one thing.
yeah. To be honest with you, that Because when I went there, he said to me, "What's the main things?" And the gay thing had come up again. I said, "Me, keeps me a gay." He said, "Are you gay?" I said, "No." He said, "But is it like you're gay, you're gay, you're gay?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's OCD."
Yeah.
And I was like, but as I said, because I thought it was stereotypical washing your hands or turning the light switch on or checking to see if you lock the door,
Mm.
it was good to be pigeonholed. But in the other side of it, I thought, no, don't sound right. So that was really then a journey in itself of self-discovery and understanding. The later part of my life has been really with that, you know.
And
It was
accepting and
understanding,
diagnosing. And yeah.
yeah, it was understanding things. So I went to the library and found a book by Claire Weeks. You might have heard of her. She's an Australian. She was an Australian doctor, specialist in nerves and all this. And it said how to recover from mental illness. And it said that you need 100% acceptance around this and accept that it's not a linear path from here to there. You're going to have up, down, two steps
Yeah.
forward, three steps back. It's all over the place, the
Yeah.
recovery, you know. But you just got to take it easy on yourself. Remember, you're mentally not right. Don't try to run before you can walk, you know.
Mm.
Um, and some days I run before I can walk. I made myself ill again. I was tired. The anxieties would come again. I'd be more stressed out. But what happened was OCD is such a bastard, right? Because it will attack the things that you fear the most,
Yeah.
right? And how it works is in the amygdala in the brain. It sends like a panic stingy, and then within nanoseconds, you get that panic thing. Where a rational person would think, let's have it right. We all think mad stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're humans.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We have so many, So you might have a thought, I wonder if I could kill someone, right? It will just go out your head. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, I wonder if I can kill someone. I then think, why am I thinking that?
Yeah.
You're so
Say it to me.
hyper. Exactly. And once you've done that, because it's caused this whoosh of fear,
Yeah.
now you've got that whoosh. That whoosh means something, but it don't mean fuck all.
Yeah.
But you've attached to that. So now it's an issue, and that's really been, and I've had every sort of obsession you can find, you can get. So I've gone from harm OCD to gay OCD to paedophile OCD to the only OCD I ain't got is cleanliness one. My missus said, why couldn't you have the cleanliness one? So that would have made it right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know if you ever see a program called Pure.
I
It was
haven't,
by
mate.
a
No.
woman called, it was on Channel 4. It was by a woman called Rosie Cartwright.
Mm.
And she suffers from harm OCD as well. And she has violent, intrusive sexual thoughts regarding her parents. And she'd done a program called Pure on Channel 4, and it explains it unbelievably. It
I think, mate,
explains it unbelievably.
I'm just going to say this now before I forget. Thank you very much for opening up and being so graphic and also so informative on that, because I can guarantee there's probably somebody at some stage that's going to listen to this and think, fucking hell, that's me. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I'm doing this
Yeah,
podcast, is to try and get all this information to cover as many bases as possible. But it takes people like you that are willing to open up, explain what they've been through, their thoughts, the processes, and why. And it will make a real difference, mate. So I just wanted to get that in there and just say thank you for opening
yeah,
up
no
like
worries,
that,
mate.
because it's no small feat though, mate. You know what I mean? It's not a small thing to do, to come on and put something out there that people are going to listen to and explain how it all works. But it's I want to put this correctly. Like, I'm fascinated listening to you. Fortunately, I guess for me, I don't suffer with OCD, but I think it's important for people to understand these things, you know, because it might be that somebody in your life might suffer with it. And if everybody was just a little bit more aware of mental health conditions, to be able to identify things and maybe just signpost people when they need it. Like, by the sounds of it, you lived with this for a long, long time before getting
Yeah,
that diagnosis. And by educating people, hopefully that can help people, that they're not going to have to wait as long, that it could be a friend or a family member where you go, do you know what, mate? I'll listen to this podcast today. And I listened to this bloke, Paul, and he was talking about this OCD that he's got, and he said he feels like this, and that sounds a bit like you. Have a listen to it, or whatever, and that's the purpose, mate. So yeah, appreciate you being as open as you are.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Do you know what? It's been one of them things because, as I said, when it happened in '99, there was none of this about.
Mm.
Obviously there was OCD, you know, but it was like having to find this thingy. And then when I went to a therapist, he said, "You've got home OCD." He said, "And I'll tell you this now." He said, "I would trust you with my newborn baby."
Yeah,
He said, "Because I've had home OCD." He said, and he said the difference between people like you as opposed to people like thingy or whatever, they don't think they're doing nothing wrong. He said the thought
mm.
creates so much anxiety in you that shows you that you're not a bad person.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. So the fact that you're fixating on it and stressing, like, I know this is wrong, that I'm thinking this way,
Mm.
shows that you're not actually going to act upon it.
Yeah,
Whereas somebody that was, let's go as extreme as we can, if somebody was a serial killer and they wouldn't be stressing about being a serial killer, would they? Because they'd be one and it would feel
they'll
okay
enjoy
to
it.
them. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So when you're having this thought, and what happens with OCD, it keeps you in that loop. Now, what keeps you in the loop is it's like you have the thought, then it goes round there to the anxiety, then the compulsion. So the compulsion might be that I would phone my mum up and say, "Am I mad?" And she would say, "Of course you're not mad." That's it. It would lower it down until it comes up next time. "But am I mad?" "Of course you're not
Mm.
mad." And it's this constant reassurance. Get the thought, compulsion, am I okay? And that's it. It
Yeah,
just goes on and on and on and on and on.
yeah.
And um, that's really where I was. I mean, I take medication. I've been taking medication for 20 years.
Mm.
So that's another subject. I mean, you could go into. You know, you only really should be taking it short term, but I've been on it long term, and there's no.
Mm.
I'm the guinea pig when it comes to long term um, psychotropic medication. There's no research for this. So when you try to come off
Yeah.
it, it doesn't say. When you try to come off these tablets, you got a whole new ball game in, which I've tried to come off them 3 or 4 times, and then you end
Okay.
up in a suicidal mess.
Oh, fucking hell.
Do you know what I mean? And then you go to the
Mm.
doctor, and then you might find a doctor that's, this is going to sound ridiculous, but you might find a doctor that's not well equipped with this knowledge. So they will say to you,
Yeah.
it's your depression or your anxiety coming back. And then you might have a doctor that's really up on it and says, "No, what's happening is that you're having withdrawals from the medication."
Mm.
So I've had doctors say you can come off that medication in 3 weeks. I've had another doctor say you can't come off that medication for about three
Yeah.
years.
Look,
You
man,
know,
I'm not one to slate doctors, but I think it is always worth bearing in mind when you go to see a doctor that most of the people you see are going to be a general practitioner. So what that
Hmm.
means is they've got to cover everything from an ingrowing toenail. Now, if they're covering stuff like infections in your toes and chest infections and shit like that, they're not all equipped to deal with complex
No,
psychological issues. That to
no,
me should be a
no.
specialist and only a
Yeah,
specialist, you know. So, and it's a lot of pressure to put to play devil's advocate. It's a lot of pressure to put on a GP, isn't it? To go, do you know what? You need to be up on this. Like it's a well, it's a psychologist's job, isn't it? And realistically, people with mental health should only be dealt with, in my opinion, by mental health experts. However, I also understand that the NHS and the medical system in the UK can't cover that at the moment. So it's like, well,
exactly.
are you going to get some help rather than no help? That's better than no help. But I guess from your own perspective, at least you know that, do you know what, actually, some of this advice might not be great. So I'll go
Yeah,
and get another opinion.
yeah. But it's like learning. You learn this for yourself. Like this has
Mm,
been 25 years in the making to learn this about myself. Um, that when I'm stressed, when I'm tired, when I'm irritable, that's when all this stuff comes out. You know. Um, But on top of this, like, so what I started doing when I got diagnosed with that, I started then sort of as we're talking about the drinking and all that, I started self-medicating with, I was drinking a lot more. And the drink, I was drinking quite a lot, you know, and
Yeah.
I found that as well as taking the medication, I found it, I loved it. I like to drink. Do you know what I mean? I
Mm.
did like a drink. And then within that, it's like I started self-medicating with drugs again. So now I'm taking the Prozac, I'm drinking, and then I'm self-medicating with cocaine. And
Fucking hell,
then,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And then because I've got an obsessive nature person,
Mm.
I can't stop obsessing. I'm thinking about drinking. I'm thinking about getting on it all the time.
Yeah, mate, that's a tough combination, isn't it? Because, well, with how you just explained, with how your thought system works, to think that then you could turn that into alcohol or drugs. I mean, that's tough, mate.
Mm. And that's and that is what happened. You know,
Mm.
it was I went down the drinking route as well as still taking the medication, thinking everything was a laugh and a joke, and then started getting into the cocaine, um, which I can just describe it like one line of gear put me and just rocketed me up there, and I thought I was invincible.
Yeah,
You know, it would take all my problems away. It would take everything away. But the next day to come down was terrible, you know? So then it got to the point where I was on 60 milligrams of Prozac a day. I was drinking more or less every day and I was sniffing gear more or less every day. And yeah, I was a mess. I was just a mess. And it came to a head, you know? A couple of things happened and, someone said to me, I was in my garden at the time and someone said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I can't stop drinking." So they said, "Why don't you go to a place that can help you with that?"
mm.
I said, "Like what?" And they said, "Like AA." So I said, "Okay, I'll have a go there." And I went there once and I thought, what are you not going to teach me? Because I wasn't open to listening to the actual, what's the problem here?
Yeah,
I was in judgmental mode, looking about at people and thinking, I ain't like you, I ain't like you, I ain't like you. Don't tell me with this brush, you know? Um, so I decided the next day then to go out the pub as as any alcoholic would do.
yeah.
Say, do you know what? I'll go down the pub. I'll show them that I'm not an alcoholic, and that set off another year into a downward spiral of drinking coke again. And it got to the point where it was shit. It was just poxy.
How was that for
Yeah,
the people around you, mate? Whether,
shit,
yeah,
shit, absolutely shit. You know, it
because
was
it sounds like one of the things I've picked up through the conversation is you seem to have a good support network with your parents, or you've mentioned your mum a lot.
mm,
So I'd imagine like having to see you suffering with that addiction. Like, were there any interventions? Did they try and intervene? I know they don't normally go well, but
no, they didn't. I kept it from them because I was obviously living with my partner, and
okay.
I kept it from them, and it was shit for her.
Mm,
It was really shit for her, to be honest with you. And you know, it's hard, you know, when you've got mental health issues, and then you're um, an alcoholic or an addict, whatever you want to call it, you know. Um, yeah, it's really hard. It was shit for her, you know, and I don't know where I'd be today without her, if that makes sense.
yeah.
She's the absolute been the rock,
And this
the
is a
rock.
partner that you're obviously
Yeah,
you're still together now.
yeah. Been together 20 years.
Oh, fair play, mate.
She's the she's the absolute rock,
Yeah.
you know. Um, But yeah, it was just hell. So what happened was I went out one night, and my last night out, it wasn't working. I was obsessing about drinking. It wasn't working. I couldn't understand why I was drinking, even though I didn't want to drink. I couldn't understand why I'm sniffing gear, even though I don't want to sniff gear. I
Mm.
just couldn't work it out. And then I just sort of just one day just went same again. Had like not an epiphany. That's the wrong word, but I would say the highest sense of me, if that makes sense, a higher sense of consciousness or whatever,
Yeah.
came into play and said, "Paul, you're done." And I decided then that this is it. I need to sort myself out now. I turned around to my mates and said, "I'm done. I won't be coming out no more." And they went, "Yeah, all right, fucking, yeah, all right, we'll see you next week." I said, "No, I won't." I said,
Mm.
"That's it. I'm done." And and that's really been the last. I'll be 17 years. Well, I'm 16 years clean and sober.
Oh, mate, that's
Um,
fucking amazing. Like, I
yeah,
don't mean sound patronising here, but well done. Like, that's incredible.
thanks, mate. Yeah, so it's been that's been a journey as well as the
Mm.
other stuff. Um, and at the age of 50 now, as I said earlier, nearly 51, I've probably had the best year mentally this year I've had in my life ever. You know,
Oh,
and
fantastic,
that,
mate.
and that's because I suppose I talk to people daily regarding addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
So
um,
you know, in a position where you're now helping others.
yeah,
Yeah. Because I
yeah.
believe, isn't
You
it
get,
the 12-step program? Is it?
yeah,
And the last stage of that is helping others.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I go to AA and I go to CA, and it's helped. Yeah, it's been great.
Mm.
But the thing is, there's so many other things out there, and within going to them fellowships and finding out what an alcoholic is, a
Mm.
mental obsession, a craving for alcohol. And then once you start drinking, it triggers off an allergy, which enables you not to be able to really stop with sufficient force, you know.
Yeah.
But then the allergy, I can only describe it as saying that, "Oh, I've really got the taste of a beer. I've got the taste in my mouth. I want a beer." Yeah. And then once you have another beer, then it's another one, another one, another one. Normal people, they would probably, after 4, 5, 6 pints, think, "I'm fucked, I'm going home." But I then think, fucking, let's get the gear out, come on. And let's
Mm.
fucking go on a bender and let's not come home till tomorrow afternoon and let's drink and drive and let's do this and fucking everything's up.
Yeah.
that's how it was getting, you know.
I
So,
think
but
that'll
it's
resonate, mate. That'll resonate with a lot of people. I mean, I know when things get dark, they get dark, but for a lot of people, when it comes to like cocaine, they won't even consider cocaine if they haven't had a beer. It's that cycle,
yeah,
isn't it? It's the beer, the bag, and it goes from there. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, taking. I mean, did you ever use cocaine without the alcohol?
Twice I've done it.
Yeah.
Twice I've done it. Or I didn't. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Uh, I did like it. That's the wrong word, but I didn't feel at ease properly because I didn't have the beer.
Mm.
I didn't have a drink. But it was. I mean, the amazing, the amazing thing I think is by going to these fellowships, you find out what you suffer with. You find
Yeah.
out what's actually wrong with you, and then you you get a sponsor, and someone who's gone through the program before you, and you just talk and they explain what you're suffering with, and then to try to carry it on to the still suffering person out there,
I
because
mean, like for
regardless of
any
whether you,
sorry, mate. I was just going to say, for anyone listening that might be thinking that, maybe they've got a drink problem, maybe they've got a drug problem, and that they might want to get some support, what does that first step look like? So, what's the process of going to like an AA meeting?
it's it's daunting because
Mm.
everyone's vision in their mind, they probably think it's going to be full of old park bench drunks,
Mm.
right? That's what I thought. but it's not. And once you know what an alcoholic is, right, then we're not all park bench drunks. You know, if you've got that obsession to drink, and once you drink, you really physically cannot stop drinking. You know, and after you tell the missus, I'm going to go down the pub and have one drink, and you know in your heart of hearts you're having one drink, but as soon as you have one drink, she phones you, the phone goes off, and then you're coming out the pub, God knows what time. You know, that's not normal, is it? Do you know what I mean? Normal
Yeah.
people don't drink like that. Normal people have a couple of beers to take the edge of their day off and just think, oh, do you know what? I feel relaxed now. They're not chopping up a load of gear to bend over and sniff it, and they're not just fucking and going, fuck, let's get in the car, come on, let's go. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whether you're drinking to escape this issue, which I was drinking to overcome these obsessions as well, then the obsession itself became drinking drugs. You know, so now I'm in this loop of OCD and alcoholism and addiction. So then you get to this point, but it's really weird. You go to these places like if you go to the doctor and they'll say to you, right, so you need to go to the drink counselling place down the road. Now the drink counselling place down the road offer a great service, right, a brilliant service for non-alcoholics.
Right.
If you're an alcoholic, they say to you, try some controlled drinking.
Yeah.
You know, or just have one line. If I knew one line, if I'd known it was that easy, just try one line, I would have done that.
Yeah.
But I'm here because I can't fucking stop.
It's a weird one, mate, isn't it? Because like I've heard stuff myself when it comes to like alcoholism, because I know like going cold turkey and stopping can be dangerous, can't it? And probably the most high profile case of that was like Amy Winehouse. People talk about she died because she stopped. I don't know the truth of that. I don't know the facts of that. But I also know, like you said, with drink, one doesn't, you can't just be an alcoholic and go, well, do you know what? Actually, today I'll just have 2 pints. It don't work that way, does it? Once you have that first one, it's like the brakes come off, the control's gone, all control that you had in your thought process is removed. So it's a weird one. I don't really know. I mean, I'm no professional in the matter, but to say to somebody, "Well, just reduce it,"
Yeah.
you might as well
But
be
what?
telling them, "Well, just go and climb Mount Everest today."
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's
like
exactly.
impossible, isn't it?
But one is a business. One is a business. Yeah. That the government go and they get these people to go in there. One is a business, and one is non-funded by people who are addicts and alcoholics who know what the score is.
Okay.
You know, and then you've got rehabs. You know, you've got rehabs where people go to a rehab, and you know, if they're lucky enough, they go to a 12-step rehab, so they get shown the 12 steps. Then when they come out of rehab, they carry on with the 12-step programs. You know, a friend of mine, he's got a place called the Stride Foundation, and what that does is, at the moment, I think they're going around schools at the moment, and they're showing young kids that if there will be a time that you become addicted or whatever, you become an addict, there are other places to go before you get to this point, you know, because people who go to AA or people who go to CA or people who go to NA, they're not going there because they've just drunk too much or they've had a couple of mulled wines at Christmas. They're going there because they're fucked.
Yeah.
You know, they can't control their own life. They're not in control of their own life, you know, and you're dealing with an illness that basically is fatal. You know, no one wants to admit they're an alcoholic, you know, because you think yourself this thing. No one wants, but everyone feels sorry for the person who's got cancer or they've got this, but they don't feel sorry for the alcoholic. Why can't he pull himself together about that? But they can't because they're in the grips of an illness. You know,
I think, mate, that's really important to understand, Paul, isn't it? It is an illness. It's not a choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the stigma is, because people will look at somebody who's an alcoholic and go, he chose that or she chose that. She chose to open the bottle today. But like you said, it's an illness. There's no choice there. The thought process, it's not possible to not do that for that person at that time. So again, the stigma there kind of prevents the cure, doesn't it? It prevents getting help because of that stigma, because
Mm.
of and that label, the word alcoholic, it carries so much weight, you know, and to be able to turn around and say I'm an alcoholic, like it carries a lot of weight where people don't want that label. But if that was
Yeah,
looked at
because you look down on that.
but like you just said, if people looked at that in the same way that you look at somebody that goes, I'm a cancer survivor, then it would be totally different. Because to people that turn around and say, and it's not to compare the two, but if somebody says to you, I've survived cancer, I've had cancer, and I've survived it, I've had the treatment, and I'm now cancer free, it's a celebration. But if somebody says to you, I'm an alcoholic and I'm now alcohol free, it's not the same, is it? Not in society. Like, I see it the same. That's what I said to you when you said, like, 16, 17 years. Like, fucking well done, man. That's incredible, you know? And in a lot of ways, that takes a lot more strength. But society as a whole needs to judge it that way to make that change.
But and the thing is, if we're only taught it's 2020, say 2024, and we're only
Mm.
sort of talking like regarding mental health and all that now, the time when alcoholism and drug addiction becomes majorly accepted, it may never happen because
Maybe not in
people
our
don't
lifetime,
understand.
mate.
No, not in my lifetime or yours,
Mm.
because people don't understand it and they look down on it and they're frowned upon. And the education is like, if you're the old school, like my parents probably would have felt, don't have a puff of a joint, because if you have a puff of a joint, next thing you'll be on the heroin.
Gateway
Do you know
drug.
what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's no thing of it. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks, I'm going to become an heroin addict. You
Mm.
know, and out of say there's 100 people, out of that 100 people, it might only 10 of them, it might affect them in the way that they are an addict and they need this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it comes down with the intrusive thoughts, what we said earlier. Everyone's got thoughts going around their minds,
Yeah.
but it's only a certain people that are going to go, why am I thinking that? Not everyone's thinking that. So
Mm.
we're all different, yeah. But it's all
Well, I think
about being,
I saw an article on something the other day that I was reading, and it said that the average person has 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day on average. So, like you quite rightly said, everyone gets intrusive thoughts where you might walk past somebody stood on the edge of a curb and think, I wonder what'd happen if I give them a shove, but you don't act on it. But
yeah,
the
no,
average
of course not.
person would think it and then it's gone, forgotten. But by the sounds of
Yeah,
it, somebody with OCD like yourself is then going to fixate on that thought and keep going and keep going and keep going on.
yeah,
Particularly, I guess, the more extreme thoughts, because you're not going to fixate on I don't know, and the sky looked nice today. That's not gonna
no,
that's not gonna stick, is it? It's like you said, it's
no,
the ones that give you that shock, the fear,
yeah,
that kind of thing. And I mean, so you're 16 years clean now. Was it 16, 17,
yeah. 16, yeah. This is my
16?
17th in
Um,
November, yeah.
how has like managing the mental health side of things been going? Like, how is that? Is that just an ongoing, like you said, ups, downs, the roller coaster?
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. That's ongoing, I go to a few meetings a week to try to maintain some sort of level-headedness
Oh, fair play,
um,
mate.
with the meetings with alcoholism and all that.
Yeah,
I talk to people, as I said, every day with that. Um, when it comes down to the intrusive thoughts and all that, I'm sort of adapting and learning. Do you know what? Just try not to panic on it. What evidence do you have to support this? I've done a bit of ERP,
mm.
exposure response prevention therapy. I've had a bit of that when it comes down to harm OCD, and that was a wake up call in itself, having that sort of therapy. Um,
Yeah,
but that was a. It's all specifically for harm OCD, so I just run it through quickly. So um, I got in touch with this lady, and she specialised in ERP because I was having a bad time. I was having a real bad time with intrusive thoughts. I was around someone's house. I think I was sanding down the skirting board this a few years ago, and the knife was there. And as I got the knife, it just went, just cut your wrists. And I thought, oh, here we go again. He said, go on, cut 'em. And I just thought, oh no, what's. And then I started panicking, and I thought, maybe I want to kill myself. So that's what I'm saying here. How quick this gets me. So within a couple of thoughts, bang, you're in it again. And I thought, you know what, time now to phone up the therapist. So I phoned the therapist up and I explained the situation. She said, okay, we'll do some things over Zoom. So I said, okay. So one of the things over Zoom was, she said that there's an amazing book out there. Right, I'll just say this now. There's an amazing book called Overcoming Intrusive Wanted Thoughts. It's like a blue cover with a white cloud on it. And it is, without fail, the Bible if you suffer with intrusive thoughts. It explains the illness of how it works. So, and if you've got OCD, having normal regular talking therapy is pointless. It's like putting a flame up in a gal is pointless. So you've got to find certain things that deal with and trigger it. So there's a company in America called OCD. There's an app for that. That's pretty good. But it's always ERP, which is the best. So this woman, she said to me, I was on the phone, on the Zoom, and she said, I'm going to write 2 words. She tell me how your anxiety is. So I said, okay. She said, write the word grape. So I wrote the word grape. Then she said to me, write the word skill. So I wrote skill. She said, how does that make you feel? I said, well, it's grape and skill. And she said, right, now cross the G out and now cross the S out. So I wrote, and she went, what's it say now? It says rape and kill. She said, how's it made you feel? And I said, fucking shit. I said, because I'm looking at that thinking, why are you thinking that? And she said, but it's just a word. So I said, right, okay. And she said, right, what I want you to do now is go down to and get the sharpest knife out of the kitchen. Right, so I'm thinking, where's this going? So I come upstairs, I pulled the fucking cleaver out like that. She said to me, hold it in your hand. She said, what could you do with that knife? She went, explain what you could do with that knife now. I said, what do you mean? She went, well, tell me the damage you could do. And I said, well, I could go in there and kill everyone in the house, kill the 2 dogs. And she said, right. She said, how does it make you feel? I said, fucking horrible. She went, now look at them 2 words. Now I'm holding this knife. She's telling me to think of this. I'm looking at the word rape and I'm looking at the word kill and I'm thinking, this. I feel really, really stressed out. I feel really anxious now.
Fucking
she
hell,
said, but
Paul.
She said, this is what you need.
Therapy, mate. This
is what you need to. This is what you need to face this stuff. I said, okay. She said, right, put the knife to your neck. So I'm like this, and I was so stressed out. Honestly, I'm going all that. And she went, right, how's that making you feel? And I went, fucking terrible. She said, look at the words, and I said, no, it's better. And my head was going, cut your neck, cut your neck, cut your neck, cut your neck, cut your neck. And I'm thinking. So I was telling this to her, and she said, why ain't you done it? I said, because I don't want to die. And she said, but why haven't you done it? I said, because I'm in control. And she said, that is it. She said, you are in control. She said, your thoughts might be in control at times, but they're thoughts. And you're attaching to that thought. So you see the word rape, you see the word kill. You're holding a knife. You're telling me what can happen. You're attaching yourself to this stuff. So I was like, fucking hell. By then she went, then she said, how's your anxiety? And as soon as she said that, I went, it's going down a bit. And she said, that's it. She said, you're facing what it is. Instead of having this thought thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. The opportunities was there with this. She said, you're facing it. And then I had a couple of series after that, and then I sort of felt a lot better. I can't explain it. I felt a lot better.
I guess a summary of that is that you are not your thoughts. That's what it comes down to, isn't it? You are not your thoughts.
Exactly.
I read a book. Oh, I say I read a book. I listened to the audio book years ago now by a bloke called Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. Are you
Brilliant.
aware of it?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I mean, if you listen to the audio, his voice is a bit of a nose, if I'm honest. Like, but if you get
yeah,
through it and you get the message, have you listened to the
yeah.
audio with the little dings in it?
Yeah, the dings.
Oh,
Yeah,
mate. So I listened to that for the first, I don't know, 10 minutes, half hour, and thought, what have I got myself into here? But then he said something that really resonated. It hooked me in. Um, but it's a similar thing, isn't it? He talks about the power of now, living in the moment. You are not your thoughts. Be at one. That was the thing for me
yeah.
when he explained the saying, be at one, because I'd heard it 1,000 times and never really thought, what does that mean? But when he explained that being at one with yourself is actually being at one in the moment without any thoughts, with just clarity of
Mm.
experiencing where you are and what's going on. It's a great book anyway. To anyone listening, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. If you can get over the dings and the weird voice, it's it's worth a listen. But yeah, it's that principle, mate, isn't it?
It's the same thing, I say I talk to a few people. Like when you're in that moment, you know, you can be sitting here projecting. I could be sitting here
Mm,
talking to you in my head, thinking, "I've got that job to do tomorrow. I fucking got to do this." You're in fear straight away. You're
yeah,
anxious. You're this and that. You start looking back to like when you was 10, when you was 12. Then you're in a bit of resentment then because you're thinking that fucking what's happened now?
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you're either in front or there. When you take stock and you say, hold up, we are right together, me and you, we're having a conversation, nothing can
Mm,
touch us. We are in this moment, the two of us experiencing this thing. There's not a problem. There's only a problem when this conversation's finished and then Paul goes off. Paul goes back into his goes back into his house and he goes back and the dogs are going mental. That's when there
mm,
becomes not problems but faults and issues and this and that.
yeah.
But when you're in the right moment, that's why I meditate. I do try to meditate. I do try to meditate. I try to do it every night. I do it. We have my headphones on.
Mm.
Um, I just try to do 10 minutes. Last night I done it. I finished work yesterday. I was working indoors yesterday, building something, and I was tired. Um, so before I went to bed, I try to do 10 minutes meditation just to get a bit focused in.
That's something I
Do
wish
you
I
know what I
could
mean?
do, mate. It's one of them things that I've for years probably now I've thought I need to get into meditation, but the age old excuse of I haven't got time. I mean, it's bullshit, really, because it literally you can do it in 10 minutes, can't you? So yeah, maybe that should be a resolution of mine to get into or start to meditate, because I think the benefits of it are phenomenal. Again, I've read a lot of books on the benefits of meditation, but just never followed it through. I tend to do that quite a lot, to be fair. I've read a load of books on the benefits of cold water therapy as well and never followed those through. So yeah,
Yeah.
need
Are
to
you
get
like
that
me? You was going to
motivation.
buy yourself one of them ice buckets and then go and sit out in the garden. You had the visions. I'm going to do this every
Oh,
day, and then you try it on in the shower. You turn it on cold.
mate.
You think, "Fuck that."
Yeah, exactly that. Do you know what? I keeps it because it's the thing at the minute, isn't it? I think there's always like a trend, and those cold plunges seem to be the current trend. And I was looking at them last week. I was looking at them last week because we used to have one of those lazy spas, and that's gone now. It's dead. So I was thinking, I could get one of them cold plunges, put it in the garden. But if I'm honest, mate, I'm not a morning person anyway, and I can't even bring myself to put the shower on cold, like you just said. Can't do it. Like if you like the thought of it now of an evening, I'm like, yeah, I can fucking do that in the morning. In the morning,
Yeah.
I
Uh,
don't want to know, mate. I want it as hot as possible, hot, cozy, cup of tea, and that's me. So, am I going to get out in the morning and go and sit in a bucket full of cold water? Nah, nah, I'm not. Although
nah.
I don't know, there would have to be something, some motivation for me to do it, like a challenge or something to get me started on it.
Yeah.
I ain't got the willpower at the moment.
Do you know what though? I think it's you hit it bang on the nail on the head when you said the thing at the moment is the water, cold water,
Yeah,
right? So, and if you think about it, everybody, right, is looking for that something
yeah,
to chill them
yeah,
out, whether it be cold water, whether it be buying the easy spa, or whether it be, I don't know, doing whatever. Everybody's looking for something
yeah.
to make their life seem like they're doing something. They've got a purpose. They've got this. Do you know what I mean? They're
Mm.
doing this yoga thing, they're doing meditation, they're doing that. Everybody is looking for something, you know. And it
Yeah.
just goes to show you, in the morning, you think you'll get a person say, you might get a person who say, well, I'm not an addict, I'm not an alcoholic, I'm an addict. And then you see the queue for Costa in the morning at the petrol station, all
Yeah.
queuing up for their morning coffee, and you think to yourself, fucking, what are you talking about, mate?
Yeah.
You're queuing up to get yourself a cappuccino because you need that cappuccino first thing in the morning, so you've got a coffee
Yeah.
addiction.
But exactly how many people do you hear say that I need my coffee? Don't talk to me before my coffee. I need my coffee.
Yeah,
So yeah, you're right, mate. I think one of the things, and again, I mentioned this to somebody before, but I think if you've got that, the OCD and the compulsive behavior trait, if you can somehow manage to harness that and focus it on something positive for you, it can be like a fucking superpower.
yeah, yeah. But it's the beast I've found
Mm,
can always win out. You know, you've got to really take care of yourself in the fact of when you're tired, get to sleep. You know,
mm.
don't work yourself. And you know what it's like in doing the trade because I'm not a cab driver anymore, so I'm a painter and decorator.
Mate,
You
we've
know,
barely
so
mentioned
when
that.
you
This is to raise mental health awareness in the construction industry. So Paul is a fellow painter and decorator. So we've barely
yeah,
touched
I
on
am.
that.
No, we haven't touched it at all. But yeah, I'm a painter and decorator, and that came about by honestly, you can't make it up. So I tried to come off my medication, and I just went really down. I was really in a bad space, and my cousin was a painter, and he phoned me up and said, "Why don't you come and work with me for a couple of days?" Now this was 7 years ago. He said, "Why don't you come and work with me for a couple of days?" So I said, "Yeah, right." So I got there the first day, didn't have a clue what I was doing, got a bit of sandpaper, right, and he said, "Just rub that gate down." So I rubbed the gate down. In my head, all I'd done was got the paper, got it like that, and went, and I thought, I will start a company up. That was it. I turned around to him and said, "Why don't we start a company up?" And he went, "What do you mean?" I said, "Let's start our own painting company." But he said, "You fucking been doing it. You've been here for 30 seconds." I said, "Well, it ain't that hard, is it?" I said, "You want me to fucking rub some stuff down? How hard is it?" And he said, "Go on, then you start the company." Because I was on Instagram and all that. He said, "And I'll get the jobs." So I said, "All right." He said, "What are we going to call ourselves?" I said, "Let's call it Terry and Paul. Let's call ourselves TP Paint and Decorate."
Hence TP, yeah,
And he
fair play.
said, "Well, yeah, we'll do that." Hence TP. And that's how the company was born.
Mm.
I'd literally been on the tools for about 5 hours and thought I was a qualified painter. Thought I
Fair
was a
play, though,
qualified
mate. Fair
painter.
play. But here you are 7 years later,
And
so it turns out you were right.
yeah, but then what happened was he showed me everything he knew,
Mm.
and he kept drumming it into me. He said, "You're still in cab driver mode. You're not in painting mode." He said, "You've got to start thinking as a painter, it's got to be there." So I was like, okay. And over time, this sort of happened, and then we went into lockdown, and then we came out of lockdown, and unfortunately, he went for a run. We went at work. We went on a Saturday, and then he went at work. He said to me, "Will I see you coming running tomorrow?" I said, "No, I'm going out with like the little one."
Mm.
And he said, "Okay." And he went for a run on a Sunday morning, had a heart attack, and died. Um,
Oh, mate, I'm sorry
yeah,
to hear that.
he was only 45. He was a funny man, you know.
Fucking hell.
And it got to a point then I thought, I spoke to his brother and I spoke to his mum and I said, and my missus, and I said, "I'm going to keep the company." I said, "I've got to keep the company." I had two options then. I could have just gone, "No, I can't do it," or "Fuck it, I'm going to do it." And I took the second option, and yeah, I've not looked back. I've not looked
Well,
back.
I guess, mate, to be fair, in homage to him, then, fair play. It's what he'd have wanted, isn't it?
Yeah. And the funny thing was, I painted last week. Last job I done was it was for his wife, and I painted
Oh,
their
wow.
house. And we originally painted it, me and him, before lockdown, and
Yeah.
then I went back there and painted it, and it was. I've got to laugh because she had a big chandelier. She's got a beautiful house, 15-foot high ceilings, massive chandelier.
Mm.
And I put my ladder up and I hit the fucking chandelier and I broke the chandelier. And it's not funny, right? But what happened was, all I could picture in my mind was him looking down at me saying, "You fucking idiot." Do you know what I mean? It was just like in that moment, I just thought, "Oh dear." But you know what? Where I am today, I've got rid of my cab license. That's a venture that we'll never go back to. And really, it's just been painting and decorating. I had no idea with. I've got a few people that I talk to, especially Darren at DB Decorating
Mm.
and Nick at Moore Decorating. But Darren was the first person I reached out for, and I said to him, "Sorry to bother you, mate. This is on Instagram. We was laughing about this the other day. I said, sorry to bother you, mate. I'm new to all this, and how'd you get followers? Because I think I only had 2 followers. I said,
Yeah.
how'd you get followers? And he didn't. He ignored me, and I thought, you fucking bastard. How can you ignore me? I'm asking you to figure. And then I thought to myself, is this how it's meant to be? Is it all clicky and all this? And we've become good friends. You
Mm.
know, he's added me on my jobs and vice versa. But we was laughing about it the other day. But do you know what? It's nice to have people around you um, that you can throw your stuff off and chat to people. Do you know what I
Definitely,
mean?
mate. I
And
think Instagram has got that little community, certainly within the decorating trade. There's some really top people on there. There's some fucking incredible work. I've taken inspiration from it personally. But while we're there, mate,
yeah,
while we're there touching on it, where can people find you on Instagram, Paul?
on Instagram is TP Decoratings.
TP
I'm
Decoratings.
on,
Right, there we go. Give Paul a follow.
yeah, and it's on Facebook. And so if you need a painter, don't phone the paint warrior, phone me.
There's
But
an
here's
advert
another
for you.
person. Do you know what? I look up to these people,
Yeah,
and I talk to that Kevin quite, not pally, but like message him and all that. And I know he's gone through his own stuff and you've
yeah,
seen
man.
stuff just to message people, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a
Kev's a
really nice
Kev's a
fella. I mean, I
top top
don't know
bloke.
him.
Yeah, well, I had him on the podcast.
Yeah,
Obviously, as you know, top bloke, mate.
yeah,
His story is incredible. Genuinely, like a genuine man, a genuinely nice fella that's just out there trying to build a business for himself and his kids. And he's been through hell and high
yeah,
water to get where he is. And that's the problem, isn't it?
yeah.
When obviously Kev's got a big high profile now. And a lot of people look up and they see him and they either get jealous or they want to be where he is. But I can guarantee you, there's very few people that would want to walk his path to get to where he is now.
No,
You know what I mean? Because he's
of
been through
course.
some shit. But lovely bloke, mate. I can't say enough. Like I want to. I hope to see nothing but success for Kev. I mean, his business, his brand. Yeah, all the best to him.
I think it's amazing. Do you know what? It's amazing.
Mm.
And what I like about it is the fact that, through hard work and determination, it shows you that you
Yeah,
can
man.
actually get somewhere, you know.
Resilience
And
as well.
yeah, because I think that the generation that is now look
Mm.
at someone online and or YouTube or whatever or TikTok and think that they can be the next star, which they might be,
Yeah,
But he's gone through that thing of pain, adversity, whatever, and come out the other side, and he's now the paint warrior, you know.
exactly,
And
mate.
I like,
You know,
you like looking at his stuff, all decorators, all stuff. There's another one, JB Interiors. I was stuck the other day with a bit of thing. I was building the media unit indoors, and I couldn't work out. We sent him a quick message. He messaged me back. Yeah, that's right. That's cool. But I just thought, brilliant. That's it.
mate,
So
most
it's
people will.
and it,
Yeah, that's what I've found is most people, not everyone, and people are busy. People got their own shit going on, but
yeah.
most people will reply and be, helpful with stuff. So yeah, it's not a bad space to be. Instagram, I've found. The other platforms I'm not particularly versed in or massive on, but Instagram's not a bad one.
To be honest, I'm on Facebook, but I'm only on Facebook through the work, and
Yeah,
every
the
now and
same.
again, someone comes through. Someone might message me and say, "Can you fit us in?" Whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm happy. I can honestly say that. being 50 now, my life from when I was 25 is a million miles away. I've learned a hell of a lot about me.
It's
Um,
incredible, mate.
I've,
Your story, again, everyone I've spoke to so far on the podcast has been different. Your story's been different, but it's still, there's inspiration to be taken there because you've gone through some shit, but here you are now in the best place that you've been. And not only that, you're still attending their meetings and paying it forward by helping others. So that in itself, mate, is very, very commendable. And hopefully, I'm sure that this episode will reach some ears that are going to resonate. And again, if you're listening to this now and you think, don't apply to me, but you're worried about somebody that might have an addiction issue or an OCD issue, then send them in the direction of the podcast. You know what I mean? It's a conversation starter, isn't it? It's an opener. I think we've been talking for nearly 2 hours now, Paul. So
oh, wow.
one of the questions, mate, that I've asked everybody, so I've got to ask you, is
Yep.
given the fact that the building trades are so adversely affected by mental health issues, and particularly men that are taking their own lives, it's so much worse than any other industry. What's your take on that? As in, what do you think the cause or one of the causes is that it is so adversely affecting the building industry of, other sort of jobs, as it were? Why do you think the building trades is so badly affected?
Because I would say that they're all, have a want a term, men.
Mm.
Yeah, they're all men. And still, the stigma is there for a man to open up and say, I need help. I'm fucked. Majority of men, even me, was at that point thinking, I ain't talking to no one. I can't tell no one this. There's nothing wrong with me. I know what I do. I'll have a drink, you know, or I'll have a drug. That'll get rid of it. Or I'll have an affair. That'll take me away because my missus is doing me head in. So she's the cause. I'm not saying I've done that because I haven't, but I'm just saying in general, that's what I'm saying about men. They're not happy. So they're looking externally to fix that internal problem. And an external cannot fix an internal problem, never. You know, it might mask it. Midlife crises, I'll go and buy a Ferrari. If I had the money to buy a Ferrari, but I'll buy a new car. You know, how many times you bought a pair of trainers and you've seen a geezer walking down the road who's got the trainers that you originally wanted on, and then you think, my ones are shit, but they're brand new. Do you know what I mean? So this stuff
Yeah.
here you're dealing with is an internal problem. And if they've got the balls to say, I'm fucked, yeah, I need real help because this is what's going to happen, I'm pretty sure if they talk to the right person, they will be shown the love and support that they need.
Absolutely,
But it's
mate.
all it.
It's well said. It's one of the common things that's coming up. There's no wrong answer to it. It's one of the common things that's coming up is that stigma of, the stereotypical, I'm a big hard man, I'm in the trades, I'm not getting, I can't talk how I'm feeling, I'm not going to talk about my emotions. And I think it definitely plays a big part in those statistics, unfortunately, amongst others. Like I say, that there's other pressure points. But I'm asking everybody because I think everybody has got a different viewpoint and a different perspective on it, and it's good to pull all the puzzle pieces together because that's what we're getting, like a picture coming from everybody's perspective, everybody's angle. So appreciate that, mate. Well, at this point, I think thank you very much for giving up your time today, mate, and coming on to the Talking Tradesman podcast. Again, for anyone looking to find Paul, you can find him over at TP Decorate. Is it Decoratings? On
Yeah,
Instagram, TP Decoratings. What I'll do, I'll put Paul's link to his Instagram page in the description for the episode, so you'll find him down there, nice and easy. Paul, is there anything that you wanted to finish up on, mate?
just thanks for having me. Thanks for having a chat with me. I've really enjoyed it. And anyone who's struggling out there with mental health or addiction, there are places that you can go. Just be brave enough to say, whether it be gambling, sex addiction, drugs, whatever. Just be brave enough to admit you've got a problem and then go and try and find the right avenues to get that help because there is help out there.
That's perfect, mate. That's perfect. And as I say, I think, that there's some big, strong messages in this episode. And to anyone that's dealt with anything that you've been dealing with, they're bound to find strength from listening to what you've been through and where you're at now. More importantly, the fact that you've come through it and you're in a good spot now. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do give the podcast a like, a follow, a subscribe, a share. The Instagram page is by far the most popular. So if you get chance, go and show some of the other platforms some love. The Talking Tradesman is live on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube. Please give us a subscribe on YouTube. It all helps for the continued growth of the channel. And thank you very much for listening.